The 1950s weren't just about perfect lawns and white picket fences. They were also about quietly banning crops that had fed American families for generations. 20 common garden crops that your grandfather grew with pride were suddenly discouraged, restricted, or outright banned from home gardens. The reasons why will surprise you. Number 20, hemp. Hemp was once a staple in American fields, with tall bamboo-like stalks waving in the breeze and seeds that could be pressed for oil or eaten for protein. Your great-grandfather might have grown hemp for rope, cloth, or even as a cover crop to improve the soil. The plant is tough, fast-growing, and can thrive in poor conditions where other crops fail. Its deep roots break up hard ground, and its leaves return nutrients to the earth. But by the 1950s, hemp was swept up in the anti-marijuana hysteria that gripped the country. Despite being non-psychoactive, hemp was lumped in with its cousin cannabis and banned under federal law. Farmers who had relied on hemp for generations were forced to plow under their fields, and the knowledge of how to grow and use this versatile crop faded from American agriculture. Only recently has hemp begun to make a legal comeback. Number 19, Jerusalem artichokes, sunchokes. Jerusalem artichokes, or sunchokes, are tall sunflower-like plants with knobby potato-like tubers that taste nutty and sweet when roasted. They're incredibly hardy, thriving in poor soil and drought, and can produce a bumper crop with almost no care. But by the 1950s, their reputation took a nosedive due to their notorious digestive side effects, earning them the nickname artichokes. The high inulin content caused such severe gas and bloating that many gardening magazines stopped recommending them. Suburban families, eager to avoid embarrassment at the dinner table, quietly ripped out their sunchoke patches. The crop that had helped families survive the Depression was now seen as a social liability. Even today, sunchokes are rarely found in home gardens, and many people have never tasted this once essential survival food. Number 18, Hydrilla. Hydrilla is a fast-growing aquatic plant with slender, whorled leaves that can quickly take over ponds, lakes, and slow-moving streams. It was originally introduced as an aquarium plant, admired for its lush green appearance and ability to oxygenate water. In the wild, Hydrilla can form dense mats that choke out native plants, block sunlight, and make fishing or boating nearly impossible. By the 1950s, Hydrilla had escaped cultivation and was spreading rapidly through American waterways. Its ability to reproduce from tiny fragments made it nearly impossible to control. States began banning the sale, transport, and planting of Hydrilla, and property owners were required to remove it from ponds and lakes. The plant that started as a gardener's curiosity became one of the most notorious aquatic weeds in the country, costing millions in control efforts and lost recreation. Number 17, Coca plant. The coca plant is a small, glossy-leaved shrub native to South America, where it has been cultivated for thousands of years for its stimulating leaves. In the early 20th century, a few American gardeners and botanical collectors grew coca as a curiosity, fascinated by its history and traditional uses. The plant is attractive and can be grown in a greenhouse or as a potted specimen in warm climates. But the leaves of the coca plant are the source of cocaine, and by the 1950s, the U.S. government had zero tolerance for any cultivation. Federal law made it illegal to possess, grow, or even import coca seeds or plants regardless of intent. The plant that was once a botanical oddity became a symbol of the war on drugs, and any trace of coca in American gardens was eradicated by law enforcement. Today, growing coca is a serious federal crime. Number 16, opium poppies. Opium poppies are strikingly beautiful, with delicate petals in shades of pink, purple, and white. and seed pods that rattle in the wind. For centuries, American gardeners grew them for their ornamental value and for the tiny nutty seeds used in baking. The plants are easy to grow and can thrive in poor soil, making them a favorite in cottage gardens and along fence lines. But the same pods that produce harmless poppy seeds also contain the raw material for morphine and heroin. By the 1950s, federal authorities decided the risk was too great. Even growing opium poppies for ornamental purposes became illegal, no matter how innocent your intentions. Gardeners who had enjoyed the flowers for years found themselves quietly removing them, and the once common sight of poppies in American gardens faded away under the shadow of drug enforcement. Number 15. Ground cherries. Ground cherries are low, bushy plants with lantern-like husks that hide golden, sweet, tart berries inside. Kids used to love popping the fruits out of their papery shells and eating them right in the garden. But ground cherries belong to the nightshade family, and 1950s health concerns about nightshade toxicity cast a shadow over these innocent treats. Reports of stomach upset from eating unripe ground cherries, combined with their tendency to spread aggressively, led many gardeners to abandon them. The crop that had delighted generations of kids was now seen as a risky nuisance, and ground cherries quietly disappeared from most American gardens. Only recently have they started to reappear, as gardeners rediscover their unique flavor and versatility in jams, pies, and fresh eating. Number 14. Amaranth greens. Amaranth is a tall, leafy plant with red or green leaves and tiny seeds that can be cooked like grain. It was a powerhouse green that had sustained families through tough times, but the 1950s agricultural revolution had no place for this primitive crop. As hybrid vegetables and commercial farming took over, amaranth was dismissed as weedy and unrefined. The rise of frozen vegetables and supermarket convenience made fresh amaranth seem old-fashioned and unnecessary. Government agricultural programs actively promoted modern crops over traditional ones, and amaranth greens gradually disappeared from seed catalogs and garden recommendations. Relegated to the dustbin of agricultural history today, amaranth is being rediscovered for its nutrition and resilience, but it's still rare in most American gardens. Number 13. Purslane. Purslane is a succulent, low-growing plant with fleshy, lemony leaves that are packed with omega-3s and antioxidants. It was once treasured by gardeners who knew its secret, but its spreading habit made it look too much like a weed for 1950s suburban sensibilities. The post-war obsession with tidy, controlled gardens meant that anything that didn't grow in neat rows was suspect. Chemical companies marketed herbicides specifically to eliminate purslane, and most homeowners gladly complied, not realizing they were destroying one of nature's most nutritious plants. By the end of the decade, purslane had been successfully rebranded from superfood to pest, and it's only now being appreciated again by health-conscious gardeners. Number 12. Dandelion greens. Dandelion greens were once a spring staple, packed with vitamins after a long winter of preserved foods. The bright yellow flowers and jagged leaves were a familiar sight in every yard, and families would gather the young greens for salads and cooked dishes. But the 1950s suburban lawn culture declared war on dandelions, and eating them became almost embarrassing, a sign that you couldn't afford real vegetables from the store. The chemical industry pushed 2,4-D herbicide as the solution to dandelion problems, and soon these nutritious greens were being systematically poisoned out of American yards. What had once been free food became the enemy of the perfect lawn, and families lost both a valuable crop and a connection to their agricultural roots. Number 11. Garlic mustard. Garlic mustard is a biennial herb with heart-shaped leaves and a sharp, garlicky flavor. It was brought to America by European settlers who valued its medicinal properties and taste, but by the 1950s, it had earned a reputation as an invasive menace. Its aggressive spreading habit meant it could quickly take over woodland areas, choking out native plants. Conservation groups and agricultural extensions began actively campaigning against it, teaching people to recognize and destroy it rather than harvest it. The irony is that garlic mustard is perfectly edible and nutritious, but its ecological impact made it persona non grata in American gardens and wild spaces alike. Today, it's more likely to be pulled and discarded than picked for the dinner table. Number 10. Stinging nettles. Stinging nettles are tall, leafy plants covered in tiny hairs that can sting bare skin, but when cooked, they become a mild spinach-like green loaded with iron and vitamins. Nettles were once a prized spring tonic, gathered by families who knew that boiling or steaming eliminated the sting. But suburban living and the 1950s safety culture had no patience for a vegetable that could hurt you. Parents didn't want children accidentally brushing against nettles in the yard, and the plant's aggressive spreading habit made it unsuitable for neat suburban gardens. As wild foraging knowledge faded and supermarket vegetables became the norm, nettles transitioned from food to nuisance, something to be eliminated rather than cultivated. Number 9. Plantain. Plantain is a low, broad-leafed plant that pops up in lawns and driveways, often mistaken for a weed. But for generations, Americans used it as a natural remedy for cuts, stings, and skin irritations. The leaves could be chewed and applied to wounds, and the seeds were a gentle laxative. But its humble appearance and tendency to grow in disturbed soil made it a target of 1950s lawn perfectionism. The rise of modern medicine also meant that people no longer needed to rely on backyard remedies, and plantain's medicinal value was forgotten. Herbicide companies marketed products specifically to eliminate plantain from lawns, and homeowners eagerly complied, not knowing they were destroying a plant their grandparents had considered invaluable. Number 8. Wood sorrel. Wood sorrel, with its lemony flavor and heart-shaped leaves, was once a favorite snack for children. The plant grows in shady spots and produces tiny yellow or white flowers, and the leaves have a refreshing, tangy taste. But it contains oxalic acid, and 1950s health awareness campaigns warned about the dangers of eating too much of anything containing oxalates. The plant's clover-like appearance also made it easy to confuse with other plants, leading to safety concerns. As suburban yards became more manicured and parents became more cautious about what their children ate from the garden, wood sorrel was increasingly treated as a weed rather than a snack. Number 7. Chicory. Chicory is a tough, deep-rooted plant with blue flowers and bitter leaves that can be eaten raw or cooked. The roots were roasted and ground as a coffee substitute during hard times, and the leaves were used in salads and as a cooked green. But the 1950s prosperity made such substitutes seem unnecessary and even shameful. The bitter greens were also falling out of favor as American palates shifted toward milder, sweeter vegetables. Chicory's deep taproot made it difficult to remove and control in suburban gardens, where neat, shallow-rooted annuals were preferred. Agricultural extension services stopped promoting chicory cultivation, and it gradually disappeared from American gardens, surviving mainly as a roadside wildflower. Number 6. Mallow. Common mallow is a sprawling plant with round, scalloped leaves and small pink or purple flowers. The leaves and seed pods, called cheeses by children, were once eaten raw or cooked in soups. Mallow is drought-tolerant and can grow in poor soil, making it a reliable food source during tough times. but its sprawling growth habit and persistent nature made it incompatible with 1950s garden aesthetics. The plant was increasingly classified as a weed, and chemical herbicides made it easy to eliminate. As processed foods became more available and convenient, the need to forage for wild edibles like mallow diminished. By the end of the decade, most Americans saw mallow as nothing more than a persistent garden pest, and the knowledge of its uses faded from memory. Number 5. Violet leaves. Violet leaves are heart-shaped and tender, with a mild flavor and a surprising amount of vitamin C. They were once a common addition to spring salads and sandwiches, and the purple flowers were used to decorate cakes and desserts. But the 1950s brought new concerns about eating anything that wasn't clearly identified as a commercial crop. The similarity between violet leaves and other plants led to safety warnings, and the rise of supermarket produce made wild greens seem risky and unnecessary. Suburban lawn care also targeted violets as weeds that disrupted the perfect grass carpet, and chemical treatments gradually eliminated them from most yards. Today, violets are more likely to be seen as a nuisance than a nutritious green. Number 4. Cleavers. Cleavers, also known as sticky willy, is a climbing plant with whorled leaves and tiny hooks that cling to clothing and fur. The young shoots were once gathered by rural families and cooked as a spring green, and the plant was used in folk medicine as a diuretic and skin remedy. But its aggressive growth habit and tendency to cling to everything made it unwelcome in suburban gardens. The plant's wild, untidy appearance didn't fit the 1950s ideal of a neat, controlled garden. As Americans moved away from foraging and toward supermarket shopping, knowledge of edible weeds like cleavers was lost, and the plant became just another nuisance to be eliminated. Number 3. Shepherd's purse. Shepherd's purse is a small, weedy plant with distinctive heart-shaped seed pods and tiny white flowers. It was once used both as food and medicine, especially for its ability to stop bleeding and treat wounds. The leaves were added to salads or cooked as a green, and the seeds were used as a peppery spice. But the 1950s medical establishment discouraged self-medication with wild plants. Shepherd's purse contains compounds that can affect blood clotting, and safety concerns led to warnings against its use. The plant's weedy appearance and small size also made it seem insignificant compared to the large, impressive vegetables being promoted by seed companies. As suburban gardening focused on ornamental and clearly defined food crops, shepherd's purse was relegated to the category of unwanted weeds. Number 2. Wild onions. Wild onions are slender, grass-like plants with a strong onion smell and flavor. They were once a welcome addition to the dinner table, providing flavor when cultivated onions weren't available. The bulbs and leaves were used in soups, stews, and salads, and children would pull them up and eat them raw. But their strong smell and tendency to make milk taste bad when eaten by dairy cows led to their classification as a pasture weed. In suburban settings, wild onions were seen as disruptive to lawn uniformity, and their persistent bulbs made them difficult to eliminate without chemicals. The 1950s preference for mild, predictable flavors also worked against wild onions, which could be quite pungent and variable in taste. Today, wild onions are more likely to be pulled as weeds than harvested for the kitchen. Number 1. Watercress. Watercress is a peppery, semi-aquatic plant that grows in clean streams and springs. It was once considered a delicacy, gathered by families who prized its bite and nutritional value. Watercress is rich in vitamins A, C, and K, and was used in salads, sandwiches, and as a garnish. But the 1950s brought new awareness of water pollution and the dangers of eating anything from potentially contaminated sources. Industrial runoff and agricultural chemicals made wild watercress risky to consume, and health departments began warning against gathering it from natural water sources. The rise of supermarket produce also made wild watercress seem unnecessary and potentially dangerous, leading to its virtual disappearance from American tables today. Watercress is making a comeback in specialty markets, but the wild-gathered tradition is mostly gone. These 20 crops tell the story of how America changed in the 1950s, from a nation of gardeners and foragers to suburban consumers who trusted stores more than their own backyards. Many of these plants are making a comeback today as we rediscover their value. If you found this trip down memory lane interesting, hit that subscribe button and check out our next video about forgotten fruits your grandparents grew that you need to plant today.